traditional meeting of Warwick District Council on 30th of January 2025 at Shah Hall in Warwick. My name is Robert Margrave, Chairman of Warwick District Council. Just a few words about the emergency procedure. There are no planned tests of the emergency alarm. If the alarm does sound, everyone present must leave by the designated exit routes via the main reception. If the preferred route is blocked, use the nearest signed alternative route. Do not use the lift. Everyone must assemble at the designated points, which is next to the County Museum in Market Place. Members of the public and press should report to a member of the reception team who will be wearing yellow fluorescent jackets. Councillors and officers should report to the committee officer. Please do not re-enter the building until a fire officer advises that it is safe to do so. You'll be aware tonight's meeting is likely to be quite long, and therefore I'm minded to take a comfort break after item 5. So on to the agenda. Item 1 is apologies for absence. I already have apologies from Councillor Billiard, Collins, Hales, Harrison and Syson. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Chilvers.
Apologies from Councillor Luckhurst.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Melrose.
Thank you, Chair. I should declare on the proposed amendment motion on option 3 for us to go in talks with Oxford, Buckinghamshire and Berkshire councils. For the record, I need to state I work for Reading Borough Council. I've confirmed with the monitoring officer I can participate in the debate tonight, but if council decides to support option 3, I will make sure I'm not involved in discussions in my council role or in my officer role in them talks. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other Councillor Matecki?
Yeah, I'm a member of the County Council and a member of its cabinet as well.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, I'm a member of the County Council and I'm also a member of Royal Leamington Spa Town Council.
Thank you. Councillor Phelp. Councillor Chilvers and Roberts, I think I'm going to say members of the County Council as well. Are there any others? Councillor Wright.
If we're declaring Town Council, I just wish to declare that I'm a member of Warwick Town Council.
Thank you. Are there any others? Yeah. Oh. Councillor Sinham. No. So. Catch.
I'm Warwick Town Council.
Okay. Thank you. Where's that? Oh, okay. Councillor. Everyone now. Councillor Dixon.
Can I just confirm that we have dispensation, which was agreed earlier on today, as a member of Kenilworth Town Council, and I believe other members also, we have an agreed dispensation.
Is the other two councillors asking the same question? Mr. Leach, is that correct? Yes, okay, thank you. I think that's all sorted then. So, item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Just to confirm that we're going to confirm those minutes of the 18th of December, the next meeting we have on the 19th of February. Item 4 is communications and announcements. As chairman, since we last met, I've attended the funeral of Rose Winship, the former head of Cultural Services, who passed away on the 21st of December. You may not be aware, but Rose had worked for the council for 35 years, having originally started as a lifeguard. Rose was a highly valued member of our staff, respected by both her work colleagues, councillors, and many local sport and community organisations with whom she worked. She has left a great legacy for Warwick District Council, and we will all fondly remember her. The service was very well attended by friends, family, colleagues, and former colleagues. So, if I may, can I ask that we all stand for a minute's silence in respect of Rose? Thank you. One more announcement. This is the final meeting of Warwick District Council here, be it council, cabinet or committee, not jumping the gun, that's going to take place at Shire Horse. And as Councillor Seckham is present, I would like to formally place on record our thanks to the County Council for hosting us while the building works at the Town Hall were taking place. And also thanks to the County and District Council employees who've worked very hard to make these arrangements work so well. As Chairman, I am grateful to the agreement of the leader and portfolio holders not to make any statements this evening under item 8 and through group leaders, that no questions are going to be asked under item 9. Can I just confirm that's still the case? Thank you. And also that there is no item 6, which would be petitions. So, the reason we're all here, item 5 on the agenda is the English Devolution White Paper. As laid out on the agenda, I've invited a number of parties to speak to the Council on this matter. And my view is that these parties all provide a perspective on the White Paper that this Council want to hear from in informing our own views. I also wish to place on record my thanks for the work of the Chief Executive for his briefing to councillors last Friday evening, and also the committee services team for the significant amount of work they have undertaken in enabling this meeting to take place at such short notice. I recognise this additional meeting of the Council may have presented some challenges for the invited speakers due to previous commitments, and therefore I am very grateful to those who are here to address us tonight or have provided a written submission for me to share with you. It's a bit disappointing that some didn't respond to the invite. However, for your confirmation, the following are either here to address you or I will be reading out a statement on their behalf. So there's Jim McCowan, how do you say that? Minister for Local Government and English Devolution. I'm not sure we have that statement yet. Councillor Izzy Seckham, Councillor Liz Coles, who is substituting for Susan Junid of Stratford-on-Avon District Council, Councillor Christopher Watkins, Leader of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, Councillor David Wright, Leader of North Warwickshire Borough Council, and we have statements from Jeremy Wright MP, Matt Weston MP, and Janine Day from Warwickshire and West Midlands Association of Local Councils, that's WALC. Page 2. Councillor Keith Wellstead, Bishop's Touchbrook Parish Council, Councillor Adrian Marsh from Kenilworth Town Council, Councillor Jennifer McAllister from Royal Leamington Spa Town Council, Councillors Oliver Jacks and John Holland and Sam Jones, finally, as a member of the public. All of the written statements we have are available on the District Council website if you want to read them at your leisure. I'm going to permit 2 questions of clarification from District Councillors for each speaker after all of the speakers have addressed the Council. And then, depending on the time, I may permit more, although as they are questions of clarification, I hope there won't be too many. There will be a significant time spent listening to submissions, and after this item is concluded, I intend to take a small comfort break, as already mentioned, and before we consider the business on the rest of the agenda, specifically item 7, the notice of motion. Therefore, we now move to our first speaker, which is a statement from Jim McCone, and we haven't got one. Unfortunately, we don't have a statement from him, even at the very last minute. So our first speaker this evening is Councillor Izzy Seckham from Warwick County Council, who has 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Councillors, for allowing me to join you tonight in a familiar surrounding, but in a different seat. And I think if I could say that the age-old adage that a week is a long time in politics, well, a month is a very long time. And I have to say, for all of us, the 16th of December came as a significant challenge and quite a shock, I'm sure, to many. In my view, we have a situation which the government has determined, and we are best getting on and dealing with it as best we can. So I wanted to explain where we are in Warwickshire and our thinking behind the actions that we have today up to today taken. The principle was, should we or should we not go for a request to government to look at being one of the early wave on the local government reform, which is within the white paper. It isn't a question of will this be done, it's a question of when it will be done. We have got a record, and there's been some previous, many of you will be fully aware, that there have been previous discussions about local government reform in Warwickshire, at whatever shape or size that may look like. And we have our own, and I know you too, have had work done on that. So behind the scenes, there has been our case for change. This is not unknown to those ministers from MHCLG, and more particularly the civil servants. We've had quite a few changes in MHCLG over recent years, but I know that every one of our ministers has had that document sent to them from the Warwickshire County Council. What I think we are looking at is a model that the government absolutely is determined by 2028 to unitarise, if there is such a word or verb, all two-tier areas of this country. It's a huge and very ambitious time frame within which to do that. There are 21 county councils with district and borough councils that sit underneath that. The deadline of the 10th of January was the request to be submitted if you wanted to be considered for that. We did submit that along with 18, I think, there were 18 councils altogether that did out of that 21. As yet, and I can confirm, I know nothing, no more than you do. We do not have a response back from government, and the latest is that we might be looking at Monday as being a deadline date for an announcement, but you know, these things can change. So you know, don't hold your breath yet. Why did we decide that? I think the fact of the matter is we will be moving into turbulent times. Undoubtedly, that turbulence will be felt very strongly by our collective workforces. I think for me, one of the considerations that I wanted to take forward was as soon as we possibly can to ensure that our workforces collectively again have some certainty, and that what we don't do is have a great brain drain or loss of capacity within our councils at a time when we desperately need that capacity in order to ensure that the significant amount of work that needs to be done over this next year or 2 years or however long, whatever the wait is going to be, we need the best and brightest brains across Warwickshire to be shaping that new authority. And let me make it quite clear, all authorities will cease to be. And there will be a new council that emerges, and what we want is to shape it ourselves. I would very much, again, this was another thinking that we had, that at this stage, there isn't a predetermined model in Westminster, not that I know of anyway. And I think for us, between all of our councils within Warwickshire, I think we've got a very able body of councillors and officers that know what needs to be done and what needs to be preserved and what we can do best ourselves. And I would like all of us to be part of trying to shape the future of a new council for Warwickshire. A year further down the line, there may be a model that starts to emerge that Westminster determines to place upon us. And I think that would put us in a not so favourable position. I may be wrong, but that's my one of my considerations. The 10th of January was a significant date because it was about whether you, the county, wanted to consider being a delaying the elections that are due this year for the county council. And again, it goes back to the point that we have a body of councillors with experience. And I don't know about you, but when I first became a councillor here, it took me a long time to get to know the work of the council and to understand the consequence of decisions and how they can be made and what impact they can have. And the one thing, as sure as eggs are eggs, is every decision that is made has a positive and a negative effect. And we need all of our councillors across the piece to understand the consequence of these very difficult decisions that will need to be made. So we'll have a huge work stream to take forward, collectively, I would suggest. And I think that we are far better bonded together to work out those work streams together to preserve the best for Warwickshire and to ensure that our residents and our taxpayers actually get a council that they can be truly proud of and that we can shape a future together. So again, I think that experience that we have currently across all of our councils will help us in achieving that more quickly and trying to get to that point of fruition. There are some, other issues which, we can determine whether this is right or wrong, but it is not insignificant cost having a council election. The county council, when they go out to election, it costs us somewhere a little short of £1 million a pop, and we would need to have one this year, and we would need to have one next year, at a time when budgets are pretty challenged. And I know you've got your budget next week. We've got ours coming up shortly. It's never, ever been more difficult than it is now. And I know I've got some twin hatters who are trying to shape that at the moment. It seems somewhat profligate to be spending £1 million or thereabouts at that time. What I would just say, and I know I'm running out and I will get close to the point, what I think we value is that rich tapestry of difference within Warwickshire. I think we all need to ensure that we establish that at whatever tier of governance we have in this council, be it county, district, borough, town or parish. Every cog in the wheel has an important part to play to help our residents feel proud of the place that they've invested their life in. And I want that to be something that every one of us can help to shape. I'm I've got loads of parish councils, which I attend regularly. I know town councils, there are parts of our county that don't have any such things. They may in the future. But I've spent a happy hour and a half today with the chairman of our WELC, and there's some real opportunities. But everyone has a part to play in those work streams that we need to make sure that we get the very best that we can in Warwickshire. Shall I stop now? Because I'm nearly going to turn into a pumpkin.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very
for your
much,
time.
Councillor. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Liz Coles from Stratford-on-Avon District Council, who has 5 minutes. Liz.
You'll be relieved to know that my best score on this one is about 3 minutes and 10 seconds, so you'll get a whole minute to yourselves to reflect on it. Good evening. My name's Liz Coles. I am from Stratford-on-Avon District Council. I represent Hathaway Ward. I'm also the portfolio holder for housing and customer services. I'm here for you tonight as a substitute for Councillor Susan Junid Anida. I would like to thank you for allowing me to address your meeting this evening, and I would also like to pass on the apologies from Councillor Junid, our leader, and Councillor Coucher, who are our Deputy Leader. They're not able to be here this evening, or they would be, but they are actually attending the inaugural meeting of Stratford District's new Parish Council Forum. I think this is quite a timely and interesting coincidence, as it is very strongly our feeling that consultation with other bodies and councils, good communication, collaboration should be at the heart of this process initiated by the December White Paper. Sadly, this doesn't appear to have been the case so far. However, district councils in Warwickshire have already worked together in the shared issuing of letters to the county leader and to the Minister of State regarding this, expressing their concern at this lack of consultation and the postponement of the county elections. What are these concerns? A premature action without any discussion or dialogue, without anybody outside the county. The model that has been proposed in this admission is flawed and is based on an out-of-date report. There has been no exploration of the best solution for a strategic authority to address Warwickshire's very specific needs. The proposed authority in the submission has, I have to put it kindly, at best expressed a distinct lack of interest in the suggestion. And I do put it to your fellow councillors that I don't think they're that into us. Lack of thought being put into the population balance between councils, especially taking into consideration proposed growth in the years to come and orphaning existing unitary councils. Warwickshire, let's face it, is the best county in the country, but it has a very large area and it has very, very different areas within it. Local government should be based, as we've said, on a sensible social and economic footprint. But let's face it, we're a big council, there's a lot of feet and a lot of different footprints. It is very, very distinct in different parts of the county. Is one large council the best way to address this issue? The county's administration seeks to delay elections, but I believe we all share the view that they should go ahead. Elections are the price we pay for democracy. They cannot be thought of anything other than a fundamental part of a building block of our society. And I don't think they are something to put lightly aside for convenience or for save a bit of money. That they are more than that. Our district councils all respect and understand our direct responsibility to our communities. And we are not just considering what is best for any one organisation in this process. The proposed changes are not just about the future provision of services. They are about a council's ability to remain, to remain in contact with our communities. And we've shown that in a short time, our councils are more than ready to act together quickly to ensure the best interests of our residents. We have sought to work as a multi-tier group to establish the options and opportunities within Warwickshire for devolution and local government reform. And there are opportunities. Let us be clear, there are definitely opportunities that we should explore. Our councillors have written to the County Council to make that offer, and I'm sure we will again make the offer to be part of this process. We should have been in the discussion at the start of this process. And I repeat here again, and I'm sure certainly on part of Stratford, and I'm sure I'm not speaking unnecessarily out of place for other councillors.
Councillor, can I ask you to bring your comments to a close, please?
Absolutely. Last 2 lines. We are ready at Stratford to continue to work with our council colleagues in a partnership, but that must be born out of good communication and out of collaboration with each other. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Councillor Watkins, leader of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, who has provided a written statement which I will read out. As the leader of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, I want to make it known that I am not against the principle of devolution or local government reform. There are many opportunities for my borough, Warwick District and Warwickshire as a whole within this. However, I do not agree that Warwickshire is ready to join the priority programme and has not properly considered all of the available options. This feels rushed and risks missing an opportunity to strive for the best possible model, putting our communities at the forefront. I have, in partnership with my fellow district and borough leaders, made representations to government to give Warwickshire the time to undertake this work. At the heart of this message is the recognition for the communities, culture and senses of places that form up our county. It is my hope that in complement with all local government organisations in Warwickshire, the various options can be duly explored to establish the right outcome for all residents of Warwickshire. That's the end of that statement. And the next statement I have is from Sir Jeremy Wright MP for Kenilworth and Southam, I think it still is. So this statement says, "Thank you for inviting me to come and speak at the Council's meeting to discuss the English Devolution White Paper. I am sorry that I am unable to attend. I take the view that unitary status has advantages financially in terms of better coordination between, for example, planning and economic development, and in providing greater clarity and simplicity to the public on which council is responsible for what. I do, however, think that the membership of the West Midlands Combined Authority is not in my constitution's best interests, and should not be required of a new unitary authority. I also believe that it would be undesirable for unitary status to be imposed upon us by central government, and that unreasonably short timescales in agreeing and implementing it will inhibit both proper planning for the change and broadly based public support for it. That's from Jeremy Wright, MP. Next on the list is a written statement from Janine Day from Warwick. Do we have that statement yet?
Sorry, apologies, Chairman. I thought it was Matt Weston. Next.
Yes. I haven't deliberately missed Matt Weston, MP. And I think you have his statement.
I do, yes. Thank you, Chairman. The government's plans for devolution sets out a vision to deliver the biggest transfer of power out of Westminster to England's regions in a generation. These transformative changes will rebuild local government, making it more effective, saving taxpayer money that can be invested into public services and improving accountability with fewer politicians. It is clear that the government wishes to move quickly on this, and I will want assurances that Warwickshire County Council is able to move so quickly with its devolution efforts. This is a key opportunity for our region, and we must collaborate with our district and boroughs to determine the best approach to devolution. I do think the public should have the options presented and explain the benefits of the government's proposals, as many rely on the council's services daily and their livelihoods are directly affected by the effectiveness of these services. This could be compressed into a shorter time period. There are numerous options for how devolution can be structured in Warwickshire, and each should be considered. Whether Warwickshire is included in the first phase of devolution or not is really in the hands of the government, but this can be influenced by public feedback and the preparedness of local councils. I would like to have seen more time for consideration and will await the views of the public. Thank you, Chairman. While we did not have a direct statement from Janine Day as the Chief Executive of Warwick, Janine does give their apologies today because they're actually in a meeting with Stratford-on-Avon District regarding devolution, but he has sought to give that assurance that Warwick, being an independent and advisory body to parish and town councils, they will continue to work and listen to their members and bring forward opportunities as they see fit.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Keith Wellstead from Bishop's Tatchbrook Parish Council, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I kind of feel, standing in front of this group, that we represent, or I'm representing, the small fry in this. i.e. the parish councils. And whatever happens, whatever you decide to do, taking into account the role of parish councils is essential when you're deciding on your appropriate service delivery method. We can see the benefits that a unitary authority might make. However, we are yet to be convinced that they will do so. We think that with the proper powers, locally focused councillors can do far more in the communities that they serve because they know their communities and they have worked with their communities. The danger is with a unitary authority that we lose that connection. Specifically, at present, and I can see two of them sitting over there, we have 2 district councillors and 1 county councillor. The danger is with a unitary authority, you get rid of one layer of government and suddenly we're faced with having one person to look after what 3 people have looked after in the past, which we would see as very much a retrograde step. Apart from saving money, the whole process seems to be about becoming more strategic. When you become more strategic, what do you lose sight of? Maybe it's some of the things that are really important locally, like the parks, like the quality of the play equipment, like having woods nearby that you can walk in. The danger is that they get overlooked within this new process. There was talk about giving parish councils more responsibility within this process. Well, we haven't asked for more responsibility. We may want it, who knows, but the danger is that it gets thrust on us rather than we're part of the process of coming up with what parish councillors would do. Finally, there's finance is a particular worry. There is a clear assumption in all the documents that you will save money by having a unitary authority. Well, maybe, but where are those savings going to come from and what impact will they have at a local level if what you're doing is stacking the strategic stuff at the top, you forget the stuff at the bottom, which really makes people's lives bearable. For Bishop's Tatchbrook, there is one big financial issue, and this may apply to other parishes as well. Warwick District Council are sitting on a lot of money that is owed to Bishop's Tatchbrook Parish Council. Quite rightly, they're holding it, but they are there to bring that money forward. If you go into a unitary council, where is that pot of money got to come from? Because that is down to maintain our park, to take numerous local things forward. And the danger is that that money, which is there for us to use in the future, let alone the SIL money that hopefully will come our way, that will get swallowed up and we won't see it. That's my case.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker this evening is Councillor Adrian Marsh from Kenilworth Town Council.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to join you here this evening. I am a town councillor in Kenilworth and a town and parish council representative on the Audit and Standards Committee. Since being elected in 2023, I've witnessed how an active town and parish council can contribute positively to the local community. I have found that residents are often confused about the twin structure of district and county, which can appear fragmented and uncoordinated. Therefore, plans to streamline local government in our area could offer real opportunities to improve how services are delivered to residents. But this change should not be driven at the expense of meaningful engagement and democratic accountability. We are not sure what form change will take in Warwickshire, But if the plan is to fold district and county activities into a single authority with more powers from Westminster, then town and parish councils in Warwickshire can be part of the change to ensure that decision-making and service delivery is kept close to local communities. Many of you here this evening will know that Kenilworth Town Council has been proactive in driving change. We have one of the lowest precepts of any town and parish council in Warwickshire, and we have already explored opportunities to take over the responsibility of some local services. Kenilworth Town Council has also acted as a catalyst to bring improvements to road safety, investment in local schools, and leverage opportunities to grow the local economy with projects to boost tourism and support local businesses. Placing more responsibility as close to local communities as possible, with representatives who know and are known by their communities, will shorten lines of communication and mould service delivery to local needs. And when local councils have more responsibility, it can encourage people to get involved and take pride in their area. While devolution has its benefits, it will also bring challenges for town and parish councils that have small budgets and few staff. They would need more resources and training to take on bigger tasks with added responsibility. And local people might need convincing that their councils can handle these new powers. It is essential that residents are involved in the process of change. To ensure that democracy is not damaged, the May local elections should not be cancelled. Continuing with the county council election means that elected representatives of one of the main strategic authorities in Warwickshire have the democratic mandate to deliver devolution. Cancelling an election is evading accountability. Also, cancelling local elections at the county and possibly at district level in 2027 would penalise town and parish councils because they would have to bear the full cost of these elections. In Kenilworth, this could mean election costs would more than double to over £100,000. So, as such, I would ask you to ensure three things. Firstly, there is proper consultation and engagement with town and parish councils by both central government and the upper tiers of local authorities in our area, so that local services are protected. Secondly, any transfer of responsibilities from the upper tiers here to town and parish councils is done collaboratively and accompanied by the appropriate transfer of powers and budgets.
Can I ask you to draw your remarks to a close, please?
And should local elections be cancelled, then the additional costs are not incurred by local town and parish councils. Finally, 1 minute. Analysts and consultants often brag that the benefit of mergers and strategic reorganisations are successful, but history is littered with examples where they are not. And opportunities have been squandered by ill-conceived plans that seek to protect the status quo.
Thank you. You're well over your 5 minutes.
Please do not miss this opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor. Next we have Councillor Jennifer McAllister from Royal Leamington Spa Town Council.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Jennifer McAllister, and I'm speaking on behalf of Leamington Town Council. I would like to start by thanking the Chairman of Warwick District Council for the opportunity this evening to make Leamington Town Council's views regarding devolution proposals known to the district. This is very welcome and appreciated. At its last full Town Council meeting on the 16th of January, members discussed two items around devolution. The first item was election costs. This was particularly pertinent as the Town Council was setting its budget for 2025-26. The Council noted that holding regular elections is an essential part of the democratic process. For many years, Warwick District Council and Leamington Town Council have held local elections at the same time, which has enabled them to share election costs and provided value for money for taxpayers. Election costs increased significantly in 2023, due in part to the introduction of voter ID brought in by the last government. The share of costs to Leamington Town Council for the last set of joint district and town elections in May 2023 was £74,000, a significant increase on previous years. And for context, our annual budget is £500,000. If the government agrees to the leader of Warwickshire County Council's request to fast-track the move to a unitary Warwickshire, Leamington Town Council could have to meet its full election costs in May 2027, which are likely to be at least double what they were in 2023. The Town Council has written to the leaders and chief executives of both Warwickshire County Council and Warwick District Council to ask whether they have considered the impact of the move to unitary on Town Council elections, and if so, could they share their assessment? Also, if there are no other local elections in May 27, what help, financial or otherwise, will be provided to Leamington Town Council in order to run its scheduled elections? The second item discussed was to recognise that devolution presents an opportunity for the Town Council for potentially taking on non-statutory services from the higher tier councils. This comes out of a recognition that, generally speaking, decisions about local services that affect local communities are best made as close as possible to those communities. This conversation was initiated by the Town Council with Warwick District Council about a year ago, when in January 24, Chris Elliott joined a call with the Town Council working group looking into the options. Discussions have since fallen by the wayside. However, the Town Council remains ambitious in what it would like to deliver in the future for local residents. So in the meeting, we resolved for a report to come to the next meeting, setting out the best way forward. We very much hope that there will be future constructive discussions with both higher tier councils, as well as other neighbouring town councils. Thank you.
Thank you. We next have three speakers who are members of the public, but two of them are councillors. And the first speaker is Councillor Oliver Jacks. Jakes, sorry, my apologies.
Okay, thank you, Chair. From the perspective of residents and taxpayers, I believe any future move towards unification has to ensure three things: no disruption to current service levels, clear and concise communication to residents, and clarity on the benefits of unification for residents and businesses. The credibility of local government and public confidence has to be maintained throughout the transition. And to that end, I would like to see a kind of clear risk assessment on each of the proposed models for unification, judged against impact on people and businesses. Now, while many stakeholders may wish to be bold with the possibilities of unification, I would encourage members to favour those models which minimise the risk to the public in terms of service provision and costs, particularly given the tight timescales involved. Warwickshire, as we know, is a very diverse county in terms of local economy and communities. And the strength of the current two-tier system, I believe, is that this diversity is reflected in the type of services offered locally and the resources allocated to them. In addition, the borough councils do things sometimes differently to district councils, and many identify South Warwickshire as being distinct from North Warwickshire in terms of history, economy and services. So therefore, I believe it's imperative that a new unified authority recognises this and respects the diversity across the region. and doesn't try to apply a one-size-fits-all model. There will inevitably be an impact on local town and parish councils, and maybe some will be asked to take on more responsibility. So I think a model that allows for that to happen in a timely way should be encouraged. I'm sure every resident in the district benefits from the excellent non-statutory services offered by both district and county, above and beyond actually what many other councils provide. These non-statutory and non-essential services are indeed essential, as we know, for many in the communities to meet their needs and maintain their quality of life. So good examples that come to mind are the leisure centres, youth groups, sports clubs, etc., etc., food banks, green bin collections even. So I would hope that such services are maintained during and after unification and enhanced if possible. They all add to the sense of place and economy, which is so important to community cohesion and happiness. In my own area of Warwick, I know there are funded youth groups, lunch clubs and senior citizen groups at our local GAP community centre, and other non-statutory services in the town of Warwick that are particularly important are museums, the Warwickshire Music Hub, education for schools, active travel schemes, Age UK, etc., etc. There are many benefits and opportunities that would derive from unification, particularly in terms of cost, quality and economies of scale in many areas, including healthcare, transport, social care, recruitment of new skills and planning. A good example that comes to mind is sometimes a challenge, which many town and district councils will know, of getting a simple bench, bin or notice board installed. So if it needs to be bought and installed by a team in one authority, but then requires permission from another authority on whose land it is to be installed. So finally, from my experience on both district and town councils, there are already excellent channels of communication that exist between the different tiers of council in the area that have been built up over many years. So therefore, I'm confident that a new combined authority should be able to realise the benefits by exploiting these well-established working relationships. And I also believe that there's broad agreement here that unitary is the way to go. However, I know that some are unhappy with the delay to the county council elections as scheduled for May. I'm due to stand, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I believe this Conservative-run county council has a reputation for being well-run, effectively and financially responsible. And so I think is actually the safest pair of hands to steer these proposed reforms through, given the ambitious timescale. But I conclude by reiterating, let us be guided by the good management on the impact on and benefits for local residents.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Next, it's Councillor John Holland.
Yes, good evening, councillors, and may I say I have very fond memories of my time as a member of your council, and including being a portfolio holder, and I remember the planning committee being an incredibly amount of hard work, so well done for keeping going. Now, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Labour group of the County Council, which is by a whisker the largest opposition group, and we support the submission of the proposal for a unitary council, but please be assured that this would be replacing the county council as well as the district and borough councils, and please do not assume you would have the existing county divisions and one councillor per division. That would be a matter for the Boundary Commission to decide. And if I can reassure a parish councillor from earlier, experience elsewhere shows that there will be significantly more councillors on the unitary council than there are currently on the county council. And I think local decision making is an absolutely key part of our thinking as we move forward. We well understand that our colleague in Nuneaton would not want decisions about Nuneaton to be made in Warwick, and there are various models that can be used to encourage and produce local decision making. When we had a Labour-led county council some years ago, area committees were set up. There were 5, one for each of the district and borough councils, and it ensured that the people who made the decisions were actually councillors who understood the area that they were making decisions about. The strengthening of the town and parish councils and moving their role up not just a notch, but quite a few notches, is obviously absolutely crucial to this. And I hope and I'm sure that they are all thinking in that way at the moment. We do need to ensure that whilst Warwick may be the centre of the county, that is not the centre of decision making. That must be where our residents are. Our relationship with the West Midlands Combined Authority is clearly going to be important to the government, and we have had a clear statement that having a directly elected mayor is not a government requirement. Our view is that the relationship at the moment is about right, where we are an associate member, as are yourselves, and of course you have a very important project on electric vehicle batteries, which is moving forward at the moment, and I think demonstrates that the present arrangement can work. Richard Parker is in line with our thinking on this, but it could be an issue with the government, and we need to align our thinking. On the elections and whether the county elections take place, our view is that people who are standing for election should not really be in a position of influencing or making decisions there, and that the government should decide. Well, that actually is the present position anyway. It is a government decision, so there isn't any issue there. What I would say is I've been a local councillor for many years, since 1999, having served not only on the district, but Warwick Town Council as leader, on the county council now for 12 years. I encourage residents to come and talk to me about their issues, as I'm sure you do. Well over half, the vast majority of problems are where residents fall down the gap between different councils. And I really think we have to draw a line under that. It really cannot go on. Even simple things like street lights, you have to find out who owns the street lights. But there are more serious things. Simply cancelling a free creche meant that one of my residents couldn't get to literacy classes, which is where the resident took their official letters from the district council to be read. And because the resident didn't have the creche, couldn't get to the literacy class, ended up being evicted, moved to a larger property, and then having the bedroom tax applied, so they had less money to support their family. Now, okay, that's a small individual thing, but it's a pretty big thing to that family. If you take larger strategic issues, like, for example, car parking...
Can you draw your remarks to a close, please?
Yeah, car parking is environmental, it's economic. You control car parks, we control the street parking. That must be joined up. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker this evening is Sam Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Local councillors, council officers, and members of the public, good evening. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the public. I'm here tonight to speak truth to power. I'm here to ask a question of Councillor Izzy Seckham on her decision to request a delay in the Warwickshire County Council elections scheduled for May 2025. This request, under the guise of preparing for a potential unitary authority, is an affront to our country's storied democratic values and is an insult to the intelligence of the people of Warwickshire. The people of Warwickshire have the fundamental right to decide who represents them in local government. To those in this room who may be surprised by that fact, we call it the right to vote. Shouldn't have looked away. Yet, with the political landscape shifting, it seems all too convenient that the ruling Conservative group, who currently hold 42 out of 57 seats on the County Council, but are unlikely to maintain a majority if elections proceed, are now attempting to cling to power by avoiding the electoral test altogether until such a time they hope their polling may improve. This is not about governance. This is about self-preservation. If we are to believe that the justification for this delay is the supposed efficiency of a unitary authority, we must also ask why this same leadership has so consistently demonstrated a lack of financial responsibility and competency in managing the council's affairs. Take, for instance, the so-called Bridge to Nowhere over the A46 near Stoneleigh, a project that was already millions over budget before this administration earlier this week decided to sign off on an additional £16 million of expenditure on the project. Meanwhile, across the county, residents endure crumbling roads, unsafe footpaths and vital services being cut due to a supposed lack of funds. This same county council consistently fails to evidence a commitment to implementing the government's 50 by 30 policy, which prioritises active travel in road planning, whilst some members of her Conservative group have been heard stating the car is king. It is obvious to all onlookers that this administration picks and chooses which government policies it follows, choosing those that allow them to consolidate power whilst ignoring those that benefit the people it is tasked with serving. And let's not forget the poor judgment she displayed in the handling of critical social issues. 3 Conservative councillors faced no suspension from her party, whilst public money was used to conveniently clear their names after they made deeply offensive remarks about SEND children. One suggesting some were simply badly behaved, and another implying there was something in the water. And in another display of misplaced priorities, this council went out of its way to cut a comparatively minuscule £25,000 contract to Safeline.
Sorry, are you commenting on the issue at hand?
I am. This is about the decision to delay the elections and the question of whether her judgment is appropriate. A charity which supports survivors of sexual abuse, but as was said before, we could find the millions to build a bridge. Perhaps she expects the public to get over it. In a political atmosphere where the leader of her party has been demanding an inquiry into grooming gangs in Britain, I find no end to the irony that the Conservative-led County Council has ripped away funding from the very children who that inquiry would supposedly be in service of. If this council is so confident in its leadership, then put it to the test. Let the people of Warwickshire decide. Instead, what we are witnessing is a coordinated effort between the UK's 2 largest parties, the ruling Conservatives at Warwickshire County Council and the new Labour government, to suppress the democratic growth of smaller parties. For example, in Warwick District, where the Green Party holds the most seats on the District Council, this power grab would conveniently see Warwick's District Council dissolved, stripping voters of their ability to be governed by representatives who truly reflect their values. This in spite of the 4 leaders of Warwickshire's district councils, each representatives of different parties, uniting in their opposition to her authoritarian scheming. Councillor Seckham, you have led a council that has mismanaged millions, failed vulnerable residents, ignored government policies when it suited you, and now you want to deny the people their right to vote. So my question to you is this: how can you justify silencing the democratic voice of Warwickshire's residents whilst failing them so profoundly in governance? And if you are so confident in your administration's leadership, why are you afraid to face the electorate? Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the statements. And now we'll have some questions from members seeking clarification on the statements that you've heard. So please indicate if you'd like to ask any questions. Councillor Kohler. So I've got Councillor Kohler, Bode, Day, Davidson. Okay, these are questions of clarification. So starting with Councillor Kohler.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to all the speakers for coming this evening. It's been most interesting. It's a question for Leader of the Warwickshire County Council, if I may, Councillor Seckham. In your introduction, you said you talked extensively about unitarisation. Obviously, the White Paper also talks extensively about creating a statutory authority. And so could you just explain what the county's proposal is for a statutory authority, whether it's to join the West Midlands Combined Authority, whether it's, as the leader of the Labour group on the county said, to preserve the status quo, or whether you are intending to explore options to create new statutory authorities, and if so, what options are you looking at? And I guess specifically because the Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority has said that he doesn't want the current boundaries to change, have you had any conversations with him to the contrary? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sigham.
I don't know whether to stand or sit.
Whichever you feel comfortable with.
I'll stand and then see how we go. Okay, so the proposal that the County Council is promoting is a single county statutory authority, non-mayoral. This is within the work that we've been seeking through the White Paper, and that's the proposition. We have a devolution deal, which was agreed last summer and then ratified again this autumn, and it's expanding the devolution proposition on a non-mayoral. We are, all 6 councils are non-constituent members of the WMCA, the West Midlands Mayoral Combined Authority. My colleague has said that I think in many ways that that's worked very well for the council. It's worked for the area. The Coventry and Warwickshire footprint, the economic footprint that we cover, has been a hugely important and valuable one for this area. And we do also have a health footprint on the Coventry and Warwickshire basis, both of which are mentioned in the White Paper, not specific to Warwickshire, but as a consideration. And during the iteration of it being a LEP geography, Coventry and Warwickshire LEP, Local Enterprise Partnership, that we were very successful and continue to be. We saw some of the largest growth in this area, only to be surpassed by the southeast area. So there's real opportunity. All of us are, as I've said, members of the Combined Authority, non-constituent members, and there are different arrangements with the different non-constituent councils, but many of them are well tied into the West Midlands. So although there have been no discussions with the Mayor of the West Midlands to date, I think, and there have been no discussions with government about a next step on the mayoral iteration. As I've said, it's a strategic, unitary, non-mayoral option that we are looking at this point in time. I think the answer is we need to get guidance from government if there is any proposition on beyond. But I don't see us unknitting ourselves from the current economic geography and footprint that we have. I think it would be detrimental to unknit from Coventry. Coventry is absolutely not going to unknit from the Combined Authority, and the Minister has made it very clear that current arrangements that are in place with those sorts of geographies, he specifically referred at the time to Oldham, who are a member of Manchester CA, they would not support unknitting current arrangements. I hope that covers the point.
Thank you. Follow-up.
Well, just clarify the clarification, if that's okay.
Briefly, yes.
So your proposal is to create a new statutory authority as well as a unitary authority, for it to be a statutory authority, and at the same time, remember, non-constituent members of another statutory authority. Have I understood that correctly?
The current arrangements would not change with the West Midlands Combined Authority as I see it. We are looking at a statutory unitary authority.
Thank you. Councillor Bode.
Thank you. A question to the Leader of Warwickshire County Council. On the statement that you've submitted to government justifying your case, was it ever updated from when it was first written? And is it an updated version that went in, or is it out of date?
Sorry, could you just clarify that when you say the statement,
What you submitted to the government.
The letter on the 10th of January.
Yes, and you said that you'd also given them the case for Warwickshire.
I see.
Is the case up to, was it ever updated?
So the case for change, which was the unitary proposal that was defined in, I think it was about 4 years ago, yes, autumn 4 years ago, that has been updated a little, just on the numbers, you know, population numbers and those sorts of areas. So it's had that sort of work done to it. That has been a couple of times updated. But the letter submitted in 10th of January is the same letter, hasn't changed. There's been no further communications with the Minister.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Day.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, firstly, Chairman, if I may, I'd like to thank our councillors from the County Council for attending in person tonight, both Councillor Seckham and Councillor Holland, giving us different but coordinated perspectives and presentations. So thank you for that courtesy you've given this council. My question is actually to Councillor Seckham, no offence, Councillor Holland, intended. I note, Councillor Seckham, that you stated that the government has expressed the wish, or the strategic direction is that district councils will come to an end by 2028. That is the full stop that we've been told by government, as I understand it. My question to you then is, have you heard in your conversations with ministers or with more probably civil servants, is there any blueprint that government has got around the shape of these statutory authorities? Or is it a bit like, you know, musical chairs, and if the last authority, you know, could be left standing on their own if we run out of chairs? Is that really the game we're playing?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Day. So I think, for me, I've just finished reading the document for the third time. It doesn't get any easier and or more exciting, but I would just say that it's very clear that they want to use functioning economic geographies, and I think that has to be the guiding light that all of us in our considerations need to take forward. They do also mention health geographies as well. You know, I've always, you know, in discussions with you and anyone else, have said we are absolutely bound together on this footprint that we have, Coventry and Warwickshire. And, you know, despite the demise of LEPS, which was last year, we always saw alongside Coventry the value of what we had worked up together. And so we continue to operate our growth hub, our Coventry and Warwickshire growth hub, which delivers, you know, continued support to our businesses. So I see that as our guiding light. The government haven't indicated any blueprint, it's to my knowledge, and indeed my chief exec, who talks a lot to the civil servants. My view is I would like to be hands on the tiller on that, and you know, all of us, not my hands alone, but Warwickshire hands, so that we can make sure that what we get is a model for Warwickshire, rather than, you know, as those move forward, they might define something that is simpler, easier, but isn't perhaps exactly what we would want. So that's really been my thinking. And there is a model of delaying elections. It has been done in the most of the last models that have moved forward. So although I agree it isn't ideal, it is actually not a precedent.
Thank you. Next I have Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of Bradford Semley Parish Council, who have been unable to attend tonight due to short notice, and I've been asked to make a brief and short statement to clarify their position. They are disappointed they have not been consulted or involved in this process. Pardon?
My apologies. That's not a question, that's a statement.
I can turn it into a question if that helps.
Carefully word that.
They are disappointed they have not been consulted or involved in this process. They are unsure why County Council have written their desire to pursue a devolution deal with very little direction, like how this will affect parish councils, which strategic authority wants to join, and with little to no public parish or town council involvement. They are not saying they are for or against, but we request going forward County are more open and transparent in their proposals and decision-making processes that affect everyone in the community. This includes the decision as to whether or not the county will hold an election this coming May. The devolution plans should not be going forward until there are actual plans, and in which case elections should not be delayed. So I guess my question is, do you have any plans to have more involvement with the parish and town councils? And lastly, as well, would you mind just speaking slightly closer to your microphone so that I can hear you?
And that's to Councillor Seckham, I presume.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the last statement.
The irony was it was about speaking closer to the microphone.
There we are. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Davison. So this was about parish... I missed which parish council you were talking about.
Radford Semley.
Radford Semley, okay. Can I just say, on parish and town councils, I think it's absolutely vital that they are an important part of the work that we need collectively to do together to ensure that what we have is something that works for them. They're the beating heart of so many communities. And if residents don't know Warwickshire County Council or Warwick District Council, they do know their parish or town councils. So I would suggest absolutely they need to be there, and hence my meeting today, which will continue as ever. I think it's really important that what we do is shape the future together. You talked about engagement, and some others have talked about engagement and consultation. It's not in the white paper, but it has been at a number of online meetings with ministers. They've made it absolutely clear that there will be no consultation that we, either us, the County Council, or you, arrange. That the consultation will be driven by the minister and it will be owned by MHCLG. It's not going to, they won't have a local consultation. They may well require the local councils to help them to signpost them to the partners that need to be engaged with, and perhaps to host it on the website, which of course we would do, and indeed to, if necessary, if there's a public meeting, they would want us perhaps to be involved in booking halls or whatever. But it is the minister's consultation at the end of it. That said, there isn't an invitation that I'll refuse. I would go and talk to anyone about this, and I have to say I am talking to an awful lot of people about it, because I know full well how much uncertainty there is, and if I can do any good by trying to explain or diffuse some of the anxiety, I would be happy to do so.
Thank you. Next question is Councillor Whiteman. Paul.
Thank you very much. A question again, I'm afraid, for the leader of the Warwickshire County Council. Would just like to repeat Councillor Day's comments. I think it's a great courtesy to come and speak to us tonight in person. So thank you for that. Obviously, unitarisation, if that's actually a word, presents some great opportunities for the district. But it does come with some great risks. I know more experienced councillors have probably been bouncing this around for far longer than I have as a relatively newly elected councillor. But it's obviously been bounced around in Whitehall for many years, and it's come and gone various times. I suppose one of the concerns that I and I think many other councillors and probably many members of the public would have had was that you made the announcement that you wanted to go to submit the proposal and to go in wave 1 within 3 days of the white paper coming out. When I look at the academic studies and the previous studies of the benefits of unification, it strikes me that there is no clear-cut sort of guidance that we can gain from those studies. I'm looking at the Cooksey Commission and the Banham Commission. They concluded the majority of Shire counties a move to a unitary system would not be justified. The idea that there would be automatic savings and that the provision of services at a local basis would always be better in a unitary rather than a two-tier, again, it was found that that is not a universal truth. It's not necessarily the case. So while I kind of get what I think you were saying was that we need to crack on with it, what it is here does strike me as extremely important. One of my prime concerns, I think, with unification, and you know, this I'm getting to the question now, is that one of the real issues is that it does potentially, moving to a larger unitary council, have quite a detrimental impact on local democracy. Some of the local democratic criteria, I'm looking now at the Copus, Leach and Jones study in 2020 that looked at, you know, amalgamation of the other studies that have been done over the last 20 or 30 years. It found that it would have a damaging effect on electoral turnout. It would have a damaging impact on public trust in councillors. It would have a damaging impact on the public trust in officers. It would have a damaging impact on the levels of engagement.
Can you come to a question, please?
Citizens and councillors, the amount of contact, quite a number of factors there. I won't run through all of them, I've run through too many. I suppose my point is, what steps do you think could be taken to improve that in your proposal, and what role will the local town and parish councils have in ensuring that the local services that need local input still get that local input?
Thank you. Thank you again. Please do please do tell me if you can't hear me. I'm not usually accused of being quiet. So a lot of questions in that. So I'm going to try and cover them all. If I miss any, please do say and come back. Unitarisation, risks, all of those. You are absolutely right. Of course there are. It is a path of change, and transformation is always going to be a challenge and something that, you know, we quite rightly should be anxious about. But I think in being so, I think it is our responsibility to be aware of the risks and potentially the rewards as well. There is, you know, you've quoted a number of papers and a number of documents that have offered alternative options or questions about the ability to save the funds that have no doubt been promoted. And if we look at the white paper, there is a clear direction on this because of money. And the minister themselves have said that they're looking at, although it's going to cost somewhere a little short across the whole country of £500 million to do this, they see the opportunities of reward being well over £2 billion. And I think what most of us might say is that if we were designing local government, we wouldn't start from the model that we have now, because as other speakers have today said, it is confusing. We have various different models. We're surrounded by metropolitan single-tier authorities that serve their councils and their residents. I would say, they would say that it would be as well as we do. So our aim as councillors has to be to do everything we can to be responsible and do the best for our residents. That is never more important than moving forward into this change agenda. And you've talked about town and parish councils. They are at my heart because I have quite a lot of them myself, and I'm sure they will string me up if I don't talk about them, and quite rightly so. But it also, what we value in our current councils, be they county or district, need to be a model that reflects the changing needs of people. Arguably, housing sitting next to adult social care has great opportunities, I would suggest. Leisure, sitting alongside our public health colleagues, huge opportunities that are not explored at the moment. And, you know, my colleague here has talked about parking. We can talk about planning, sitting next to each other, being knitted in. You know, the speed of delivery has to be one of those savings, but also one of those better service deliveries that surely our residents deserve. The future is what we want to make of it. And I think we should all be together making that, because I don't know the best of Warwick District Council. You do. You can help to shape that. And I think you need to be sitting here in so doing. It has to be a model that comes and evolves from all of us. But I too believe that that needs to be done in Warwickshire, not in Westminster. And that, for me, is a critical part of trying to go early. And, you know, these are the difficulties that are weighed up between, you know, democracy here now or trying to get the best model we can for the future. I think, for me, it isn't about saying, you know, everything gets sucked up to Warwick. It has to be about delivery in the locality. So larger council, local delivery. I think that might well be a strapline that we could live with. I think what isn't necessarily known or recognised, and certainly not by residents, and arguably why should it, is a lot of the services that the county council do now are done on a locality basis. So our biggest staff for adult social care currently sits in Bedworth, in King's Buildings, which was not even known to some of our Nuneaton colleagues. But that is a fact. We deliver highways on a locality basis. We deliver adult social care and children's services on a locality basis. And I think that we can harmonise what we do into the current models that we've got alongside the current models that you have. I'm in danger of getting in trouble from the chairman, but you know, the ambitions of what the future can bring are probably confined by negativity, but I think we should actually open our minds and make this a future that we really want to see in Warwickshire.
Thank you. Next question is Councillor Yella-Bragada, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. My question is similar to Councillor Cornell's question. This is to Councillor Izzy Succumb. My question is, in her opinion, which strategic authority are we going to join? And in her answer, she has pointed out West Midlands Strategic Authority. What is the reason? What are the reasons in going for West Midlands Strategic Authority over others? Thanks.
I will say, I have not said that we should absolutely be a full constituent member. I think, you know, my colleague has said that we are where we are, and all 6 of us are where we are. There is not any discussion at this point about the next stage, should that be required of us. I am looking at currently a model of a strategic, unitary, non-mayoral authority. I believe we have a relationship with the West Midlands Combined Authority that is fundamentally of benefit to all 6 councils. And that, I think, should continue. I go back to the principle of, functioning economic geography with Coventry, functioning health geography with Coventry and Warwickshire. And what I would also say is there are certain areas of moving forward that bind us into the WMCA, and that is around, particular to this council as well, which are around the gigafactory and all that we are seeing coming and emerging through that. And the gigafactory is one of 3 models that looks at the devolution around that, and Wolverhampton and Birmingham being the other 2. They are important. If we looked at another model, which you have before you in your possible recommendations that you might talk about, I think you need to consider what the impact of going to an alternative model might have on that particular relationship. I pose back a question. Would that mean that you still remain a non-constituent member of the combined West Midlands Authority, and yet you look at forging ahead on a different devolution footprint? I think that's possibly not impossible, but it does have its own challenges, and it means that you're looking in 2 different directions, and possibly that could compromise the position of the council. So I think there's areas that would need a lot of work before you got to that point. In our opinion, and that's the county council's opinion, the model of business that we have now works well. Of the 6 councils that are currently engaged with the West Midlands Combined Authority, I think, well, certainly this council has got financial interest in remaining with the Combined Authority in the West Midlands. And I know that there are other councils that are also financially beneficial as well. So I think there is risk to the continuing funds for those, and I think those need detailing before we go further.
Thank you. I'm going to take 3 more questions. Councillor Cron, Mateki and Barton. So, Councillor Cron.
Thank you, Chair. Another question for Councillor Secker, I'm afraid. It was a point raised also by Councillor Keith Wellstow and by Sam Jones on behalf of the public. But as a Green Party councillor who was elected by the public, I'm very concerned about representation or loss of representation in the community. Are you able to confirm the plans for the structure for the new unitary authority and how that will work with councillors, and also the number of elected councillors and how that will compare to what we have currently, and how can we assure the local community that they're not going to lose their voice or their representation of choice?
I think this would be something that would be defined in the next stage, and at this point there is no absolute model that we can take forward. I think my colleague here talked about increasing the number. I think that's absolutely right. We would see an increased number of councillors in a new council for a single unitary. And I don't know exactly what the proposals of taking forward. I can only go on previous and more recent previous models. So if we look at Buckinghamshire, for instance, that moved into becoming a unitary council, they delayed the elections. They formed they went forward in that interim year, which, you know, to effect if the elections were delayed. And you know, I don't know that this is absolute. I'm just giving you an example. They doubled up the membership on the county division basis. So in this case, we've got 57 councillors. You would double that up for a year. Then you would go into the next year, which would be vesting day. I'm definitely in my area of uncomfort here because I don't know all of this. But that there would be elections on that basis, and then we start to go down the route of the electoral office, and they would start rebounding and talk to the new council about appropriate numbers of electorate to councillor representations and all of that. And that would be a decision for that vesting council to take forward, as I understand it. That's my guidance. Okay.
Thank you. Next question is Councillor Mateki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think this is another question to the Leader of the County Council, Councillor Izzy Seckham. I think in a roundabout way, she's already answered these questions, but a lot of representations made today and a lot of the speeches have been about collaboration. So can you reassure everyone that this isn't going to be a county-led matter, that not only will you be collaborating with the town and parish councils, that you'll be collaborating with all the districts and boroughs and cross-party as well within the counties and within those areas as well? Thank you.
Thank you, yes. And I do apologise to the last questioner. I didn't talk about, you wanted to, reassurance about engagement, and in a way, this question is one and the same. I am a great believer in collaboration. I have to say, I've been a councillor since 2001, and when I was very first councillor, I walked into this place, and effectively what we did was we delivered services. Arguably, we didn't listen that much to how they landed and all of that, but we just delivered what we'd always delivered, and that was how we carried on. And oh boy, has it changed. Everything that we do now is in partnership. And I see my role as leader of the council, and I would argue anyone who's leader of any council, much of what we do now is the time I spend in building partnerships, building bridges, trying to see who needs communication. Everything we do is down to those important partnerships that we take forward. And those partnerships are what we can inherit in trying to make the next council something that everyone has a voice in. We've talked about towns and parishes, and some of the colleagues along here have expressed concern from some towns and parishes who feel a bit concerned about, is this going to mean a lot more work coming their way? Are they going to see, a load of services being bounced onto them because they come away from either of the upper tier authorities? I know that there are towns and parishes out there who embrace the opportunity to take on wider work within their communities because they recognise some of the vulnerable folks in their communities, and they want to take on those well-being hubs for themselves. And in conjunction with public health, I think there's a real opportunity to make that something of real value in their places. And I'd welcome that. However, I am equally aware that there are some parishes who feel very threatened by having to take on more, who really are challenged at just trying to get enough people to come and sit on their benches. And I don't want that to be a burden to them. I think they could remain exactly as they are and arguably not see any change, because I don't think they will. I would hope that what they would see is a quicker response time, because it would be one council. But there are opportunities to work with those councils. And that is the responsibility of the new councillors, which will be made up from some of you here, to make sure that you make that pledge with those councils, with those towns and parishes, and make sure that the future is about their voice as well as yours.
Thank you. Final question then from Councillor Barton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I might as well make it a full house. Councillor Seckham. You say that delaying the election is going to cost about £1 million to next year, which means then bringing the district council elections forward a year. Being chair of finance at Whitnash Town Council and sort of worried about town councils and parishes' finances, what is the provision? And I presume there must be one now, because we're not looking at the future, we're looking at how many months? Not many months. The elections for town council and parish councils. Who's going to pay for it?
So the £1 million is about how much? Well, a bit short of that. It's between 750,000 and £1 million for county elections. And actually, our colleague from Kenilworth touched on this earlier, and I also had this discussion with the chairman of Warwick. So I do understand that there's some very anxious towns and parish councils who are considering an extra burden on them. I haven't got an immediate answer, but I think that would definitely be part of the work stream. So, I mean, I think that the WALC need to be part of a community town and parish council work stream. Part of it has to be about looking at costs and election costs. And actually, there is something about trying to rationalise costs across the piece, because I know they're very different in different areas, and we need to make sense about what those costs actually are, and not burden parishes or towns unnecessarily. So I haven't actually got an answer for you, because that question has only come to me in the last week. And we're not, I don't know whether we're having an election delayed. So until then, but that will definitely be on the agenda should the election be delayed. I think it's an important one.
You've got a follow-up question, but I don't think, just to say, I don't think we're delaying or bringing forward or changing the date of town or parish elections.
No, it is a very big concern at parish and town councils. Money. We've set this year's precept. Next year's precept, if we have to pay for 4 wards, it's going to be massive on our constituents. So it's more than kicking it down the road.
The sooner we hear, the sooner we'll have answers to that.
Okay, that's going to draw this item to a close. Thank you very much to all of our speakers, particularly Councillor Izzy Seckham, who's had a lot of questions, and I think we will appreciate her answering them. We're now going to take a short break. We'll resume at 8 o'clock, and the next item on the agenda is the notice of motion, which for members of the public's benefit is where councillors will discuss a specific motion and vote on it. So you're welcome to stay for that, but we'll come back here promptly for 8 o'clock. If you're all ready. So now it's item 7 on the agenda, which is the notice of motion. I've received a notice of motion from councillors Bode, Davison, Day, Falp and Melrose, as set out on the agenda. In a moment, I'll seek a proposer for this motion. However, I wish to propose from the chair that Council Procedure Rule 13.5 to be suspended for this item to enable councillors to speak on this motion or amendment more than once. Do I find a seconder? Councillor Day, thank you. I propose this on a welcome understanding that in-return councillors refrain from speaking for more than 5 minutes and don't repeat questions that have already been asked, hopefully. So, is everyone in favour? That's carried. So, Councillor Davison.
Yes, I'd like to propose this motion, please.
Thank you. Does it find a seconder? Councillor Bode. So, speakers. Councillor Davison.
If I may, Chair, I'd like to propose the motion. It's really quite long and you've got it on a piece of paper. What I plan to do, with your agreement, is read out a bit at a time and therefore then allow chance for questions on them or comments or disagreements, and therefore it's going through a structure. So if that has agreement with you, Chair, I'd like to do that. Is that okay?
I think so, into a few sections. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Okay, would you like to start with the first part?
So the first bit is this council notes the decision of the leader of Warwickshire County Council, WCC, to request that the WCC elections are delayed for a year and endorse. So that bit, you've heard from Councillor Seckham already. She sent that letter earlier this year. She was due a reply in January. Her best guess is it will come on Monday. That's just noting, and then it says, and endorses a joint letter from the leaders of this council, North Warwickshire Borough Council, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council and Stratford-on-Avon District Council in response. And largely what we said in that was we don't want the elections delayed or be in the first wave. We do want consultation here on the best way forwards, and it may be good for this to happen once we know the strategic authority. So I'm hoping you're happy with that bit so far. And then the next bit is about the local government reorganisation, which is about what unitary authority we might be in. So that council endorses working with councils, county, district, boroughs, towns and parishes across Warwickshire to look at the options for appropriate service delivery models for unitary status. Taking into account the views of residents, this must consider 1, protecting the level of services currently delivered to the community of Warwick District by this council, the geography, population and economic and community footprint of Warwickshire, Warwickshire's relationships with its neighbours and views on which strategic authority the council would be best to look at aligning with. So that is saying we don't at the minute have a stance on whether it should be a Warwickshire-wide unitary or a north and south unitary or anything else. So I'm assuming this might be an area that people might want to give comments. If you want to state a preference for one or the other, that's great. If it's a really strong preference, you might want to suggest an amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. On that first section, do we have any speakers? Councillor Falp.
Thank you. My main concern is the taking the account views of our residents. And it's quite worrying to know that it's the government who are going to do the consultation. Okay, yes, by asking districts and whatever county to help. But I would have thought, as it's going to mostly affect our residents, then it should be led by county districts together. So I don't know how others feel about this, but I have got real strong feeling that it'll be, well, this is what we're going to do, yes or no. So I do have real concerns about that. And we're here for our residents, so surely we should have more say on consulting them about their future.
Thank you. Councillor Adkins.
Thank you, Chair. So just a bit of a statement, really, if that's all right. So this government is committed to devolution through the establishment of potential unitary and potential strategic authorities, and I fully support this. However, what I do not and will not support is any move regarding devolution which tramples on or ignores open discussion and debate within Warwickshire. So I welcome this special public interest full council this evening. But this should just be the beginning, I think, during what should be a period of discussion now. Most importantly, the residents of Warwickshire need to be listened to in order to shape what the future
Sorry,
looks like.
sorry, a few people can't hear, so just bring the microphone slightly closer.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Better. So this should just be the beginning. During what should be a period of discussion, most importantly, the residents of Warwickshire need to be listened to in order to shape what the future looks like for our local government, and this may take some time. As politicians, we must work together to ensure open debate in the public interest. Any decisions we make in the future should not be fuelled by any political interest. Views on all sides of the debate, as well as those of chief execs and officers and the public, must all be listened to. As to the direction devolution takes, I'm very aware that within Warwickshire, across the political and local divides, there are a mixture of views which relate to various concerns. But what's clear is that devolution is inevitable. Whether there will be a single unitary or separate unitaries, or even if we combine with a strategic authority, is yet to be decided, and we must take time to make this decision. The process towards change cannot be rushed, nor should we be bulldozed into it by any one leadership. I know some of us feel this is what is currently happening at the moment. Any moves that happen must feel like agreements, mergers even, but not a takeover. We must work together, discuss together, exchange views together to determine the best course of action for the benefit of all communities across Warwickshire. This is not a political game. No decisions should be made for political reasons. I have a number of concerns relating to devolution. There are many inequalities across Warwickshire. Many of these inequalities have been exacerbated over the last number of years. Devolution must fix this, not make this worse or exacerbate this. I know there will be trade-offs inherent in the devolution process, but any devolution must secure policy solutions, not more challenges. There are two other concerns I have which I call upon national government to consider. There are the first is representation. Devolution should not be a cost-saving exercise, although I realise there may be some gains in this area, but local government, including elected representatives, are stretched enough. Residents deserve local representatives who have time and life experience. There is a danger with any devolution that there is a decrease in representation which have a knock-on effect on the public. I also call upon government to secure any additional resources needed to meet growing demand and cost pressures overall, but also for the cost of devolution. Finally, it is important to note that as politicians, we must remember that our collective weight and voice remain our most powerful tool as we move forward towards devolution. Let us remain committed to the public interest, committed to collective working, and committed to transparent decision making. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any more speakers? Councillor Bode.
Thank you. I mean, it's interesting, the discussion we had earlier on, whereby there was a new model come out that we hadn't covered, which was 2 unitaries. The argument was Warwickshire would become a unitary, but also a strategic authority. Well, I don't think anyone spotted that in the legislation. So that sounds a bit like a dream. So I think we can ignore that one. And I think if you look at where the government is driving, it's to have unitaries which then cluster together into a strategic authority, much like the West Midlands conurbation. Now, we may or may not like that, but we need to be realistic about what is available to us. And we've had debate about unitary. I think there seems to be general consensus that unitary is fine. It's how you get there and how it's then administered and who it works with. And you look at the documentation that's come out where they need to be economic units and units of health and trying to marry those all together into one area so you don't go across boundaries. Now that's going to be a challenge. And I think what we're asking for here is there are 4 options down there, some of which I would suggest look a bit barking, but there they are, they're down there. But we've got money to get a consultant who we've used before to give us a SWOT analysis on each of the options. So we have a realistic view on which one we really ought to go for. And probably we need to throw in the Warwickshire strategic as it's floating around. I mean, put it in there And if the answer is no, well, that's that job done. So I think we do need to spend the money and get that work done. It's crucial that it happens. It's all about timing now, because we don't know what's going to be allowed. We don't know what the powers are going to be, what we do with non-statutory power. We heard a lot of that today from parishes and towns. But the only thing they could take on, if they're capable, would be the non-statutory services. But you have to admit then that there are lots of small parishes around that couldn't do that. So how do you do it in those areas? Or maybe you don't. Maybe they use the services that the towns have taken on and have organised. For instance, like leisure, you could split leisure up into 3, one for each of the main towns, under one contract with a way of working it as a partnership. So there's ways of doing things, but small parishes wouldn't do that. But we need to look to see what options are about. What is there in the country where they've already done this to see how it works? Now, everyone throws their hand up and say, well, look at Cornwall. Well, we all know Cornwall's a bit different. It's only linked on to one place and it's got a common interest. So Cornwall makes sense. Warwickshire is different, which is why we need to look at these options as to what we think we can do, who we could work with, what's of benefit to us. I mean, there's been ideas floated. Well, we've got Warwick University, big in technology. You've got gaming industry with us, and you've got the battery, hopefully, at some stage, the battery going in there. So it's all part of an area that has got special investment status, and maybe that could have gone with long haul, Oxford-Cambridge link, so it's more of a triangle than an arch, because they all fit together. That won't happen, I'm sure. So what we've got here are 4 options to look at. It would be interesting to know if we want to look at all 4, to get members' views, because what we're really looking for is seeking information of how to get the best new council for our citizens. That's what it's all about. And we need to be looking at that and being able to make that decision. And it needs to be the right decision, because we'll probably be stuck with this for another 50 years. My worry is that there's probably a model there already from government which says we're going to administer this. It's called devolution, but it's actually top-down. And we'll operate one model. I find it really unbelievable that they say you can't do your own consultation, it's a government consultation, and keep your nose out. That devolution? Don't think so. So anyway, consider these 4 options. Be nice to hear what people say, even if we keep the 4 in, just see if they've got any thoughts on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Sinnott.
Thank you, Chair. Building on what Councillor Falk was just saying earlier, I'm a bit out of sequence here, but still. The residents want this. The government are right on this. It's not if, it's kind of when and how, and that's where we come into play. The district has served residents well. Proud record in that. The district gets it at a local level, and we can't lose that. You know, thanks to our chief executive, has been out to parishes and towns, talking, helping them with this process, although we don't have any answers. The district holds lots of assets that are held for the towns and parishes in perpetuity, implied or otherwise. They belong to the local people. This is an opportunity for the better, but it could be a car crash if rushed. We've got to do it for the residents and with the residents. And I was surprised to hear tonight that there'll be no formal consultation with towns and parishes. The small fry, those vital small fry. I can't understand why, but then if we are the districts and we're the closest to them, we need to bridge that gap. That's a shame. So I'd like to hear us as a district step up and look after the towns and parishes. They have a voice and we can allow that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just going to write down 2 names. And next it's Councillor Milton.
Thank you, Chair. I won't I won't speak long. I think we'll have a good debate this evening. From my perspective, I think unitary is actually a good thing. I think it does create some opportunities, and ultimately it creates simplicity for our residents. I know if I had £1 for every inquiry I've had about highways as a councillor, I'd probably be a very rich man. What doesn't make sense to me is that actually to so aggressively pursue a particular unitary solution, which has been put on the table by the leader of the county council, without a full exploration of both the risks, but I think most importantly, an understanding of the shape of the strategic authority. So we've got some options, as Councillor Bode alluded to, and there are probably some others, as we've mentioned. But the reason I think this is really important is it's the strategic authority that's actually going to power the economic growth that we need in the region, but also more broadly in the country. If we want to see that economic growth, we've got to give some urgent attention to what's the shape of that strategic authority and what part do we want to play in it. I think the suggestion that we stand alone as Warwickshire, I'm not sure that's actually provided for in the legislation. And secondly, I think it would leave us at a real risk of disadvantage of other larger strategic authorities who would actually quite quickly show a bit more vision, be more fleet of foot, and leave us behind. I think it would be a really retrograde step for us. The shape of what, so that's important, but also the shape of the unitary is clearly of importance to us, but also most importantly to our residents. To get that right, we need collaboration, we need discussion, and we need engagement, and that's with residents, but also with the different councils. That's going to be difficult to achieve because of the way that this process has started, with someone firing the starting gun so obviously towards a particular solution. It's going to be difficult to recover from that. And I fear that if it does go ahead as has been requested, we'll end up with a future unitary authority that may have been shaped by councillors who have experience, but it's been shaped by councillors who have no legitimacy. And I fear that that will forever tarnish whatever that solution ends up as. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kohler.
Thank you. I'd like to start just by observing that if we end up with a single unitary authority, that will not be devolution. That's the opposite of devolution. We will have taken the services currently provided by the districts and boroughs and centralised them into the county. So a single unitary authority is the opposite of devolution, whatever that is, centralisation, I suppose. However, a two unitary authority solution for Warwickshire, South and a North, that you could justifiably argue as being devolution. You're taking the county services and splitting them down into two. You're delivering those more locally. For my sins, I went to in the public gallery for the cabinet meeting of the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council meeting last night, where they had this discussion, and the public speakers there were kind of saying that Warwick is quite a long way away from them. If you're reliant on public transport, it's a nightmare. I looked it up on Google. Google reckons it takes an hour and a half to get from Nuneaton to here on public transport. I would quote back to you what the Cabinet said on that item, but they didn't say anything. They just voted it through, voted the recommendations through, so I'm none the wiser what the Cabinet there think. Anyway, so when it comes to strategic authority, that definitely is devolution. We're taking powers currently exercised by government in Westminster and bringing them down more locally. So that is to be welcomed. It's obviously limited devolution, doesn't go as far as I would like personally, but there we go. It's what's on the table, so we should be actively trying to put forward our best case for what we do. So the current combined county council proposal is to rush into a single unitary authority and to join the West Midlands Combined Authority. I think the leader of the county was a bit shy about saying quite how interested she is in the West Midlands Combined Authority. I think the letter that she sent to the minister is quite clearer. And she's also quite right in saying about the principles behind the selecting an area for a strategic authority. She's absolutely right. Economic area, and there she's absolutely right that Coventry and Warwickshire are intrinsically linked economically. The white paper talks about public sector boundaries, trying to adhere to those, and she's absolutely right. Healthcare boundaries, there is a Coventry and Warwickshire Integrated Care Board. There are actually 2 NHS Foundation trusts delivering hospital services within Warwickshire. There's a South Warwickshire, and then there's the Coventry and Warwickshire, which delivers in Rugby and so forth, as well as Coventry. So from those points of view, she's absolutely right. I don't know if we've ever done any survey work or any consultation on what the residents of Warwickshire think about joining the West Midlands Combined Authority. I rather suspect that they don't want to be run by the mayor for Birmingham, basically. But I think that should be a priority that we should try and explore in any consultation that we manage to have. By the way, I think, again, she's absolutely right that the government are saying that they'll run any consultation that's part of the process. That doesn't really stop us running a consultation before the process gets formally underway. So I would very much recommend that we ask for forgiveness rather than permission and just get on with something. But when it comes to the strategic authority, we have a trilemma. So the economic area and healthcare boundaries for us are intrinsically linked to Coventry, so it's Coventry and Warwickshire. I don't think we want to be part of West Midlands Combined Authority, and West Midlands Combined Authority Mayor is on record as saying that they don't want us anyway, even if we do want them. And yet also the government is saying that existing boundaries of combined authorities won't be revisited. So Coventry isn't coming out of the combined authority anytime soon, it seems. So those 3 statements, one of them's got to break at some point. So I would very much argue that we look for what is best for the residents of Warwickshire and then try and keep options open so that in the future, maybe we can try and make the case with Coventry that they should come over and work with us more closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Chairman, thank you. Can I firstly just second and endorse your thanks to our committee services team and widen it, if I may, to the leader and our chief executive in enabling us to meet here tonight. If there's ever a practical demonstration of the value of a district council, it has been the debate here tonight that we're having. The fact that we could draw in together, cross-party, people from town, from having the leader of the county here, and actually have an informed debate about something that's so important to our residents is a credit. And I really want to make sure our officers understand that, Chairman, because I think they've done an excellent job in setting us up for tonight's meeting. Moving on, though, and I should just also, for those that don't know, I was the last representative from this district council on the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership Board. It was a fantastic learning experience as your then leader for understanding how this region works. It also was a really productive place to get business done, informally as well as formally. And benefits for that, by the way, you can see at Leamington Station, for example, the bit where we managed to squirrel away some funding from the LEP for that. But I want to make that point because sometimes the formal structures don't enable us to see the informal structures that are possible. And I think the model that we're seeing being put forward at the moment by the county is actually playing quite strongly on the informal structures of being a non-constituent member of the combined authority without necessarily having to be at the top table as a constituent member, which, by the way, has costs as well to our residents as well, potentially of benefits. I was taken tonight by a few key factors. I still have scars from the merger with Stratford. I still have waking moments when I go back to meetings that I thought I'd hope I'd forget. And what I did here tonight is that the road that successive governments have been on, going back to the Blair government and the Conservative Liberal, and then the Conservative, and now our Labour government, they've all been on this same path around local government reorganisation. And what I heard really clearly is that path ends in 2028. That feels like a long way away, but it's 3 years away. And we know the timetable of local government. That's actually tomorrow, really. That's really quick. Now, what I also heard tonight is that path of change is going to happen whether we sign up to it or we don't. It's going to happen. It's inevitable in that context. And what I heard from Councillor Seckham and from others is that we have to now work really hard to make sure that our local government for the future is made here in Warwickshire, not imposed on us from Westminster. And for that to happen, we have to really focus, I believe, as district councillors on the things that's our services and the things that have been important for us to work on. Those services around place that are not, mandatory services, that are not statutory services. How on earth are we going to make sure that our leading edge waste management system, which has been invested in heavily and is really popular with our residents, is strengthened and maintained in the future in any future unitary model? How are we going to maintain our parks, destination parks that bring so much joy to our residents? How are we going to make sure that our hard work around planning and our net zero DPD, for example, is actually front and centre as part of a new unitary? I could go on, but you can see the risks if the new unitary is just a cost-saving measure because we have to pay more money to fund adult social care and children's services. You talk to any county councillor, and there are a number here present this evening, that is where the budget threat and challenge is for Warwickshire at the moment. And why should the new unitary sacrifice our non-statutory services to find the money to pay for adult social care and for children's services? That's what we have to fight for. And we have to put party politics aside to achieve that. So, and I appreciate, I don't want to go on, and I generally do go on. I know we need to strap up. We are going to have a really busy year ahead. We need to do all we can to strengthen our cross-party work, and we need to defend those things around this council's work that we really value. And that is about place, the special place of Warwickshire and Warwick District. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it quick. I think everyone's in general agreement about this. But despite the aim of moving from two-tier to one-tier, it seems the plan is to move from a district and county model to a two-tier unitary and strategic authority one, with huge uncertainty on what strategic authority is even plausible. This plan is the opposite of devolution. Local authority will be centralised further from our residents for claimed but as yet unclear benefit. With due care and caution, I hope that any benefit can be made clear, not least through a well-considered plan around what strategic authority we can be part of, which this motion helps progress. And certainly we need better and more up-to-date exploration of the options, which is why I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Councillor Margrave. I welcome the part of the motion that's been added in italics this afternoon, so it's the latter half of the page we've been presented with. I listened to Councillor Seckham this evening closely, and I think I've heard Councillor Bode's comments about Warwickshire being a strategic authority. I think and that perhaps we shouldn't be considering this. I would respectfully disagree with you, Councillor Bode, in the sense that we need to keep our options open. If Councillor Seckham is driving the county towards possibly a Warwickshire-only strategic authority, to not have a fifth item on the motion here, that we should look at that. We're just putting our heads in the sand and pretending that what we don't want isn't going to happen. It may not happen, but I think we ought to ask the chief executives and leaders to actually look at that as a fifth bullet point on 1 to 4 in the italics. And I'd hope the motion proposers, I think is all the leaders of each group, will be willing to add that in as an additional line on the motion. I'm also a little bit concerned about the word endorsing the joint letter from the Leader of the Council. if I actually read that letter closely, it's about that. No, this was supposed to be responded to by the 8th of January, and it's urging Councillor Seckham and the County Council to withhold from requesting deferral of the May 2025 elections. Well, that ship has sailed. She has requested, the County Council has requested, and I indeed do support that, but I don't see why we should be endorsing that when that ship has sailed. And it would be much easier if we were noting that rather than endorsing that. Overall, though, on unitary, I am very much in favour of it. Out campaigning for the County Council elections, which may or may not happen in May, and I'm quite happy to have them happen in May if that's the government's decision. It's quite clear this week that there's a total confusion out there when a resident was talking to me about the particular County Council candidate and blaming them for the fact that the bins weren't being collected on time. That's the sort of problem we are having with our residents. I think many of us as councillors will have experienced that. I think the key thing here, though, is what is happening is it's being done to us. And effectively, we had just 2 working weeks in which to respond from the 16th of December to the 10th of January, which is, in my view, completely unreasonable time frame for something so important as this. That's the government's right, and perhaps they ought to take note of Sir Humphrey's comment, and one of the, I think it was Yes Minister, don't do this thing in this damn fool way. Well, that is another ship that sailed. So we've got to look at what we're actually faced with. And that's why, for my reason, I think it is much better to be involved right up front on these decisions, and for Warwickshire to be able to lead from the front and tackle issues that, as they arise, so that the solutions work for Warwickshire. Rather than if we delay a year, it may well be that everything is set in stone, we're not at the table, and the solutions that other councils come up with actually don't work for our county. So overall, I'm happy to support the motion. I think particularly if we had point 5 as suggested, and maybe water down the endorses to notes. Thank you.
Thank you. I will come back to that point 5. Can you just say what you were going to, because I haven't got point 5 on what I've got here, what were you going to propose?
There isn't a point 5, and that's my point, that to review the option of a Warwickshire Strategic Authority.
Okay.
I think the word standalone probably is what most people will be referring to as that. Is that what your understanding, Councillor Bode?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I think we should. You did, and then...
Okay, we're going to accept that as a friendly motion amendment. Councillor Davison.
I think if we're doing that, can we have it as any other proposed strategic authority? Because there may be others.
Thoughts? General agreement?
Councillor Davison, what is your comment on the fact that the ship sailed on the word endorses? It ought really to be notes.
Can I make a comment on the strategic authority first, Chairman? Yes. The list that you've got there was because I asked the Chief Exec, and by the way, you've seen his email, so our thoughts are with him on that. I hope that family situation improves rapidly. I just asked him to tell us what the likely credible possible strategic authorities would be, and he came up with the list, and the longer one with the map was what he sent. So some of those weren't to do with us, so only the ones that included South Warwickshire included. So that was what was there. In terms of, I think Councillor Kohler spelt out why Councillor Seckham's position seemed a bit strange. You can't be a non-constituent member of one authority, one combined authority, and a separate strategic authority. The government's made it clear that strategic authorities need to be across the piece. You may well know that they turned down both Norfolk and Suffolk, which both are bigger than Warwickshire population-wise, and neither had a mayor. And the word, at least according to the BBC, now that they've put a combined one with a mayor on top, that's likely to be much more favourable. So I'm not sure that will fly, but we can have it down if you like. In terms of endorsing the letter, it's in terms which I think pretty well everyone has agreed with, is the sense of the way we're going. And that's to say not to delay elections, to look in real sensible terms at options rather than just going for a Warwickshire-wide unitary, and to know what the strategic authority is first. So that's the point of endorsing them, and that's why I'd prefer that word to remain.
Okay, everyone happy with that? So back to the questions. Where do I get to? Councillor Redford.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think I really ought to speak as the town and parish champion because I've heard a lot of concern tonight from the parish councils. It seems to me that we are in danger of scaring them off. We have 23 or so parish councils in this district. And I'm pretty sure, like me in my ward, many of you who have parish councils and go to visit them know that they have trouble now trying to fill the spaces on their committee and on their councils. And I fear that this may get worse because they see no positive financial aid coming forward. We are asking them to take on more responsibility. Many of them don't have the experience that is needed. And to me, unless we can show them how financially they will be helped, I suppose that's not our responsibility. It should be the government. But I think we are in danger of losing more and more of these people who give up a lot of their time to try to help their communities. What happens to those councils that are not prepared to take on the responsibility? Will they become defunct? Because this really is the first level of democracy. And if we allow some of these councils to fade away, we are not upholding democracy. This is something that we should be thinking about. And to me, what it sounded like from the leader of the county council was the government is throwing the cards up in the air and seeing how they fall. They don't seem to have a model, but we are being asked to fulfill their edicts. Well, what edicts? We've no guidance. But I'm urging you to consider the parish councils. I really feel that I ought to say that on their behalf.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Dixon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually really excited by what's before us tonight and also daunted by it as well. I think as councillors, we're going to be very busy, even busier than we already are, over the next couple of years. Lots of meetings and loads of papers to read. I'm also daunted, however. 50 years ago, I can just about remember the last local government reorganisation. I was living in Warwickshire at the time. We went into West Midlands thereafter. We're being asked to engage with a process that will probably be in place for the next 50 years. And with all due respect to everybody here, I look around the room and I don't see many people who are going to be here in 50 years' time. We've also heard a lot about collaboration and transparency this evening. And I would just welcome hearing from Councillor Davison when it says that this council asks the Chief Executive and Leader to explore various options. How is he proposing to do that in as collaborative and as transparent a way as possible?
Thank you. As it happens, Councillor Davison is next on the list of people who want to speak.
I think it will be challenging, Councillor Dixon, to be perfectly honest. There are lots of conversations going on across the country. We haven't particularly been in part of those. Councillor Bode said this, all the four options there that our Chief Exec put look highly unlikely in many ways. And that's a bit of trying to get a sense and keeping communication open. I have done, obviously, a lot of conversation with the leaders and chief execs of the districts and boroughs in Warwickshire, but that's as far as it's gone at the minute. But obviously, if this motion is passed, then it's incumbent upon the chief exec and me to do what we can to explore options. Not saying it's going to be easy by any means there. I think, well, I'd like to respond to a lot of things, but I'll try and do them very briefly. So, first of all, Councillor Kohler, let's do our own consultation. Councillor Seckham was right that the government has said we shouldn't, it's only them, so we'd need to find a non-consultation way to find the views of residents, and I think most of us here would be keen on that. So I think it was Councillor Day, he said quite a few things. Yes, good on the debate, good on the discussion within group leaders, I would say as well. I'd thank him, he actually proposed this meeting, so thank you very much. A lot of people have said this will be inevitable. My personal view is if we're in wave one, yeah, pretty inevitable. Government has already suggested wave two might slip a bit, and that probably won't be all of them. So if we're not in either of those, it probably wouldn't, in my view, be in this Parliament, so who knows what after that. Our Chief Exec, I'm pretty certain, is more sceptical than I am, having been round the loop so many times, and that is why we're saying to everybody, it's business as usual here. We're asking officers to carry on pushing forwards on all the things that we're doing, like emptying bins, but also change programme and so on. Again, Councillor Day, absolutely right. Risk of losing statutory services is a huge risk, particularly that all county councils have enormous budget problems. And whether the rumours of bankruptcy for the county council are true or not, I don't know. But there is a risk there that with unitary, those would go. Councillor Redford's asked about saying that town and parish councils will be asked to take on more responsibility. I don't believe that is the case. The assumption is, as Councillor Cole has said, it's centralisation at this level, it's powers going upwards. It's only an offer that we can ask as a council, things like parks, and I know Whitnash do this anyway, so it's not that unusual. So it's an offer, and if towns and parish councils don't want to, that's fine. They don't have to take on any more, as I understand it. There's nothing on that. I've probably missed out some good points, but if I can return to the motion, I haven't heard strong views against the bit about the unitary, which is whether it's North and South Warwickshire or a single unitary one, in terms of looking for evidence. So that first bit, I think we've got agreement for. The bit after that says this council notes a proposed allocation of 25,000 to the budget papers will be considered by Cabinet next week to support this work. That's in the context of Stratford, Nuneaton and Bedworth and North Warwickshire having similar views. So my expectation would be that pot is 1,000 that can go towards that work. The next bit about the strategic authorities, I think that's been well described by Councillor Bode and others. So I think we've largely covered this, unless there are other points people want to make. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a few more speakers, and Councillor Cole has been added to that. Councillor Day. Oh, already got Councillor Kennedy. Chilvers is already on my list. Melrose, Mateki, Kohler and Day. So Well, okay, Adkins. Okay, where do we get to? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Two, I hope, brief points. First of all, acknowledging Councillor Day's comments about the proposed merger with Stratford and all the work that went into that, particularly from officers, and to hope that in any future merger or coming together of councils, we learn from that experience. And I know it was hard. I didn't actually agree that it was the right thing to do, but I know that a lot of hard work went into that, and I hope that in any future construction of a new body, we would learn from what the lessons that we learned from that, and that would go into it. The second thing is looking ahead at some future unitary to think perhaps a bit more widely about what we might want to look for that. And people have spoken about the necessity for economic growth, which seems to be what all the major parties are talking about at the moment. But actually, I think we ought to be looking at two other aspects as well if we're heading towards a unitary. The first is environmental sustainability in terms of what is the best formation we can have to address the greatest challenge that we are facing in this country, in all countries at the moment, which is the climate and ecological crisis. And how can we best put together a new unitary structure in order to address that issue. And secondly, to look at social and community cohesion, because the breakdown of society is again an enormous threat to all of us. And I think we ought to be looking as much at those aspects of the benefits of a unitary authority as much as any sort of just increase in GDP or purely financial issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chilvers.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on Councillor Day's point about how we protect our non-statutory services. I'm looking with my county hat on at the county budget next week and seeing how those big areas of spend are gobbling up everything else is stark and scary. And so given that the government are doing this to us, my primary objective through this is to work out how we can protect those services. And so to me, especially in one of the first two waves, working out how to do that is really, really important. And I think the most likely way that we will be able to do that is through devolving to parishes and town councils. So I'm hearing what Councillor Redford is saying about how difficult that is, but to me there is an imperative, if that is the only way we can protect our services, is how do we strengthen our towns and parishes and make sure they have the financial resources and the expertise to deliver them, is the crucial question in this debate or this issue that I do not want to lose sight of. And therefore, I'm nervous about spending too much time talking about one or two unitaries, or whether we end up with West Midlands, because I think we probably will, because I would like to see us put as much time and effort into working out how we can support and strengthen our towns and parishes, if that is the route that we need to go down to protect so many of our services that we all value. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Melrose.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat the same things as others, but I'm completely agreeing with Councillor Milton, actually, in the terms of the unitary and the benefits of it. And I think when he said about £1 for every highway question, I think if we had £1 for every time someone put a county issue to us on our district emails, I think we'd have a great, we'd have a lot of money. I'm obviously for unitary. If it's one or two, I think it's a lot of unknowns at the moment, and I really think the question of the strategic authority is actually going to lead the question and answer the question of if it's one or two unitaries. At the moment, I think we shouldn't close all doors to any of the options laid out here. on paper, I think we're all looking going West Midlands Authority or the Coventry, Solihull, Warwickshire makes the most sense. But as Councillor Kohler said, there's 3 statements. Will one, you say one has to break. What happens if it doesn't break? And I'd rather have a plan B. Obviously, we've mentioned a lot of questions around, you know, services going down to parish councils, but actually what about the assets? So I'll think of Warwick Town Council, for example. They rent Pageant House to the Warwick District Council. Is there conversations where actually would they want to take that building on? Obviously, I can't answer for Warwick Town. I know one double hat is sitting right next to me. But they're the sort of questions we've also got to think about, is the assets as well as the services, and actually do they come as sort of a package deal? Because obviously could give him Pageant House, don't look at me for saying yes or no, but actually could you run it? Could the council run it long term? And I think a lot of councils tonight, especially town parishes, have talked about elections, where you are talking about over 100k. Actually, how many of the town councils are ready for that sort of election in 2027? I can't speak for the town councils, I'm sure they can answer that as well. But I think we've also got to make sure that whatever arrangements happen, the fundamental question is it the best deal for our residents? And I think that's the question with all the hypotheticals we're going to have over the next few weeks over strategic authorities and unitaries, that's the back of our mind of what we've got to have. But I wanted to talk obviously about staff, because obviously my portfolio is people. As you can imagine, a lot of staff are here tonight, and I know staff will be talking and watching this tomorrow. It has been a testing time for them. They have been worried. Councillor Davison and I have and will continue to meet the staff, sort of honing the message of going, you know, carry on as normal. We don't know the situation yet. And obviously, from my unique perspective of working at councils and one council that did become a unitary that Councillor Seckham mentioned earlier, it's about that realistic expectation. If we're in first wave, the transition arrangements are really only going to be cosmetic. You're talking your websites, your email addresses. However, the integration of the services like housing stock, policies, operational functions like systems, that's going to take time. So I just want to make sure when staff hear this, they know that actually getting us to a unitary is only phase 1, then phase 2 is harmonising that unitary, and it will take years. I'm going to tell you now, it will take a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mateki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've listened with interest a lot of the comments and debates and reasons why we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And to be quite honest, I think most of the issues raised are still going to be in existence, whether we have a 2 unitary, a single unitary. All the problems that we talk about are going to be there. So I actually agree with Councillor Chilvers here for once that, you know, to be talking about what the strategic authority we would be joining and this, that and the other is fairly meaningless at the moment. These are things that need to be resolved, and that's what will happen in the future. And I'm going to go back to our time in trying to merge with Stratford District Council, and I find it quite strange some of the comments coming out today by some of the councillors that were here then, about, you know, non-democratically elected members, etc., etc. When we were talking about a merger with Stratford District Council, there were those who were against the proposal. They didn't think that was the right way to go. But I personally don't recall ever there being a debate or questioning whether our elections or delaying our elections for a year was a reason not to do it. And I think that was on the table at the time. If we did join with Stratford, the elections would have been delayed a year. And I don't recall anybody citing that as a reason why not to do it. So I find it rather hypocritical to be hearing those kind of comments today. I cannot support this motion, and my fellow councillor, Councillor Phillips, brought this up about endorsing the joint letter, because I don't agree with the comments in that letter. There are advantages in delaying the elections. Why on earth would you select a whole load of new councillors that may only be there for 1 year and then have another load of councillors? And I know from personal experience, I'm a relatively new councillor. I haven't been here 12, 16, 18, 20 years, what have you. I know when I became a councillor in this council in 2019, I didn't have a clue how a council operated. You know, and just knowing where to go to help your residents was a problem. Who do I go to? I've got this problem. I don't know where to go to. One advantage you have by delaying it is that you have got experienced councillors across the board who do know what's going on. So I cannot support this motion with endorsing the letter, because I cannot endorse the joint letter. And finally, I think there's a certain amount of conflict in a couple of the statements here. So at the first part it says that this council endorses working with councils, county districts and boroughs, towns and parishes across Warwickshire to look at the options for appropriate service delivery models for unitary status. And then further down it says this council asks the Chief Executive and Leader in conjunction with Stratford-upon-Avon district councils to explore the following potentials. Now, we're either working with the county, the districts and boroughs and town and parishes, or we're going it alone. I just don't see how working with Stratford has got anything to do with us. If it's something we want to see what's right with us, I don't really care what Stratford says. So we're either working with the other councils or we're going it alone. I find it a bit of a conflict, that. So I'm sorry, I don't think I can support it as it stands.
Chairman, can I have a point of clarification, please? The way I read it is that we're noting the decision of the leader and then endorsing the letter that was sent by the chief execs of the district councils. So we're not endorsing what the county council leader did, we're noting it. Am I reading it wrong? Because that's how I'm looking at it.
Councillor Davison, is that how you read it too?
So Councillor Mbatetki has made 2 points. I'll deal with the his view that this is inconsistent, and can I stress the difference in government language between devolution and local government reorganisation. Devolution is the creation of strategic authorities. Local government reorganisation is the creation of unitary authorities. The first bit about working together is about creation of unitary authorities, and that's across Warwickshire because the decision is whether it's 1 or 2 unitaries. The second one is about the devolution, which is the strategic authority, and from what the chief exec has suggested, and nobody has said anything else, is that whatever strategic authority will be in, will definitely be in with Stratford-upon-Avon District Council. So that's the reason for the difference there. And if you look at the maps that he's done, Councillor Cole has made this point many times, Warwickshire's a strange shape and the economic geography is a bit strange. So there's quite a possibility that North and South Warwickshire will be in different strategic authorities. And that's, of course, why Councillor Melrose has said quite clearly that is the first question in her mind. Once we know the strategic authority, we'll work out the unitary. So that's her sequencing of it. I think they go together. You can work out in your own mind which way you're going to go on that. But that's the difference there. That's not, as I understand it, I can't see any conflict in those two, but they are talking about different things. In terms of should we delay the election or not, that's clearly a disagreement I have with Councillor Matetsky and Councillor Phillips. If either of them want to put that as an amendment, that we shouldn't we should support delaying the election, fine, let's have a vote on it.
Going back on that point, Councillor Matecki.
Yeah, I think Councillor Phillips had a perfectly good rationale to change the word endorses to notes, in the same way that we're noting the letter of the leader of Warwickshire County Council, that we note the joint letter from the different leaders. And
are you going to propose an amendment to the motion?
yeah, I'm going to propose that as an amendment.
Does that find a seconder? Councillor Phillips. Does that amendment, is everyone in favour of that amendment? Oh, sure, yes. Councillor Kohler, on the amendment.
Just very quickly, I would just observe that the difference between noting what the county councillor has done is that that was done independently of us, whereas endorsing what the council did, this council did, in terms of writing, that's this council endorsing the letter that this council sent. So that's why I'm personally in favour of retaining it as it is.
Thank you. Councillor Matecki.
Yeah, if I may, then the same applies with this letter. This was forced on us. I never had a say about the letter beforehand. We never debated it beforehand. The letter was sent. So your rationale for the county's letter is exactly the same for the letter that was issued by the leader of this council.
Thank you. So, Councillor Davison, on the amendment.
It's simply that obviously with time you have to do things. You can't have debates like this when it was the 10th of January. We did discuss it. Our monitoring officer, Graham Leach, said it wouldn't work in the time. All group leaders saw it. I should say I had support from 3 of the group leaders. 1 didn't have a position on it. But overall, there was support for that letter.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak on the amendment before we vote on the amendment? No. Okay. Please show if you're in favour of Councillor Matecki's amendment. 2, 3. Against? That's not carried. So we're back to the original motion. Where do we get to on speakers? We have Councillor Kohler next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Suspending order so I could do this again. I'll be brief. So Councillor Kennedy mentioned climate change. And I think if you compare the plans around climate change for both Stratford District Council and Warwick District Council and compare them with the County Council's Sustainable Futures plan, you will think that a South Warwickshire authority is by far the better option, frankly. Basically because the County Council offering is just hugely reliant on offsetting in 2030. So, strategic authorities, the other thing I want to say is strategic authorities, they're being shaped now, and we desperately need to be part of that conversation. And that's why I think I can't remember whose point I was responding to on that. I should have written it down. I didn't. Sorry. But I think we need to be getting going now in terms of being part of the conversations that are going on and trying to shape the future of the strategic authority, which, after all, is the predominance of whatever devolution is going to happen. And the other thing I would like to just ask the leader on, is that the motion says this council asks the chief executive and leader to explore the following potential options. I guess, if the government go ahead and cancel this year's elections, then we will be having to try and submit a case to the government by the end of March. That's not a lot of time. So if we're just dependent on the chief executive and leader on doing all of the work and some consultants, then that's an awful lot to take on. So I just wanted to say that I'm sure there's others that would be happily involved. So I just wanted your reaction to that offer.
Okay, I'll let Councillor Davison respond to that, and then I've got Councillor Day, Adkins, Payne, King, Milton, and Falk. Did you want to speak, or was that just on that? So hopefully after that we can draw the discussion to a close and move to a vote. So, Councillor Davison.
Yes, interesting. By the end of January, probably won't happen, we're meant to receive 2 letters. One is whether we're in the first wave, so the County Council's proposal for a single unitary goes ahead with devolution. It's actually meant to be a devolution proposal, and the criteria for submitting bids by March, as you say. I think if we're in the first wave, then it would imply that government agrees with the County Council's strategic authority proposal. But I'm guessing on what's happened. So I'm not sure about that. But you're absolutely right. Any help gratefully received. Obviously, I take our senior officers' advice very carefully in terms of the best way to go forwards. You know, I often say, oh, should I ring that person up? And it's, let me talk to the chief executive first. So I will follow advice on that. But thank you. Well, I'm not sure it was our offer for help, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
I think, Leader, we've got to play as a team. And can I just say, I thought the comments that Councillor Kennedy and Chilvers separately relate to this question about social cohesion. That is another way of describing place. That is the benefit of a healthy place, is we have strong social cohesion. And I think that's got to be at the centre of our proposals if we're invited to respond in March. I would say that what you're going to get is a letter that will fire a starting gun, I suspect. It is not an endorsement of the County Council's proposals. So we need to stand ready to have our plan to put by that date in March, if we are in the first wave. That's what I meant about strap up, because we're really going to have to work hard. There is a lot of work being done in the past, but I really just wanted to reflect on one other key matter, because we've had a good debate tonight, and that is the reason why, one of the big reasons why the Stratford merger did not proceed was because Stratford wished to delay still further for yet more proctological examinations of our finances, which was basically a delaying tactic. And what was at risk then wasn't that we couldn't stand that scrutiny. The risk then was the impact on our staff of the uncertainty of ongoing further machinations. So in the path to 2028 that we're on, I would actually welcome it if we're in the first tranche. Let's bring it on, get it clear, get it done, and let's shape the best outcome that we can around our place in the greater new authority. I'm mindful too, remember the government has kicked down the road the care review, Councillor Chilvers, that they have put that out there to 2028 for response. Interesting, that date, isn't it? So the funding question of how care is going to be funded in the interim really is going to fall back on savings made in local government. And that is our line of defence if we are going to have good social cohesion in Warwickshire. We cannot sacrifice our non-statutory services that relate to place to fund in the short term the government's lack of funding for adult social care and children's education. So I just wanted to share that with you now. I'm happy to bring out all my notes if we're in battle mode and make sure we don't make the mistakes. But let's look after our staff, love and cherish them. Let's not have them running around doing but frivolous tasks in a period when we're going to be under a lot of pressure. We're already got some key vacancies and we've got to be mindful of what we're asking of them over the next period. I'm really, really concerned about that.
Thank you. Councillor Radkins.
Thanks, Chair. I've just got some concerns about whether we make decisions or whether we're allowed to make any decisions in relation to one Warwickshire unitary or 2 separate unitaries. And I think we should be leading that debate. And that's something that obviously Councillor Seckham should have allowed for there to be discussion for, but didn't. Because there's lots of inequalities across the county, social, health, economic, transport problems, etc. I'm not sure whether I'm right in saying this, but when I was a county councillor, I know there was a certain way the funding worked. That money from the south did go into the north. And I think if we go for 2 separate unitaries, there's a risk that we actually don't support the north of the county, which is a poorer part of the county. And I know, Councillor Day, you've got concerns about that and trying to keep the wealth in the south, but I have the opposite concerns in that we're not going to be supporting people in the north of the county. And that's not to say that the north of the county can't look after itself or whatever, it's just the case. I mean, I know, for example, that people in the north live 8 to 10 years less than we live in the south. So I do think we have to discuss that and try and really find out the facts before we make any decisions. I think that's the biggest decision we're going to make, is whether it is a single Warwickshire unitary or 2 separate unitaries, because obviously I'm a socialist, so I believe in redistribution of wealth to a certain extent, and I think that that's something we need to properly discuss, and I would like to have an informed decision on that myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. It's a slightly pedantic point, but it's nevertheless important, and I think, and I stress that I'm not in any way bashing the motion. I'm mindful, though, that when councillor colleagues have spoken in these debates, they've talked about town and parish councils as though it's one broad, uniform category, and I wanted to say, before we conclude, that I don't think it is. Yes, they are the same tier of council with the same powers, but in practice, they're actually quite distinctive structures. Obviously, town councils serve our urban areas, and the parishes serve the rural parts of the district, so they've often got different concerns and aspirations. As Councillor Bode alluded to, in practice, it's going to be easier for the town councils to adapt to some of the changes in service delivery that might come to pass, whereas for the rural parishes, that's going to be much more challenging. So I just think going forward with the dialogue that we're having, we need to be alert to the distinction between the two types of council and not put them into one broad category in the debates. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. There's been some really useful comments tonight and thoughts, and it's been a really good debate. There's a lot of good words to listen to, and I think it's really important for us to focus on the strengths that we already are aware of. The social cohesion, I think, is really important. I do think all the things that we've done within our local authority over the years to build up the strengths and the loyalty we have from our residents here to being part of Warwickshire County Council and Warwickshire District Council, these are really important things. And I think we have to really focus hard in that we don't have much time. There's going to be a massive amount of work coming down the tracks. We have to really focus on getting what experience is out there, looking at what's been done in the past, using professional help, we talked about that, and doing all this fast and working together. But most of all, we have to drive this ourselves. It's really important that we don't lose control of where we are and before we know it, find that actually we're being wagged by the dog and we're not in control. This is really important. This is going to be a decision over the next year or so, which is going to affect us for many, many years. So let's all understand how hard we're going to have to work at this, particularly the officers in both authorities with Stratford. It's going to have to happen that way. Let's make it work, and let's make it work as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Final question before we wrap up from Councillor Milton.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a clarification on the discussion around sort of the, let's call it the democratic deficit, and there was an allusion made to our discussions when we were looking at the super districts, and I know it was something that we spent many hours talking about in scrutiny in particular, and some very useful sessions. I think where it's very different is that district was being shaped by people who had a democratic mandate. We'd all been elected fairly recently. We were having those discussions. That's not what's being proposed by the leader of the county council. And I think it's right that actually if we're going through a huge change like this, that actually it's important that residents have a say in who is going to be guiding that. And if they have the confidence in the existing councillors, they have the opportunity to re-elect them in May to guide us through that next process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that's going to conclude the questions. Lots and lots of questions, but no answers, I don't think. But it's been a very useful debate. Does the seconder want to speak again? Hopefully not.
Look,
well, in the best possible way, of course.
Looking at the time, probably not.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for. And Councillor Davison as the proposer.
Thank you for all the thoughts. There is a lot to think about here. I would like to propose the motion as set out on the piece of paper with the addition of point 5 on the second list about strategic authorities. If you've got better words, Chair, that would be great, but it's or join any other potential options.
They work for me if everyone's happy with that.
Sorry, can Graham Leach suggest something better?
Through you, Chair. I'm not sure it's much better at this time of night, but I had or any other feasible option that is identified.
Exactly what I said, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, we'll move to the vote then. Please show if you're in favour as the motion as discussed. And against. 2 against. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a long evening. We've just got to get through some final bits. I don't think we need the common seal, do we?
No, you don't need the common seal.
Okay. So I've got a couple of things to say before we all run off. We all know where the next meeting is, don't we? Well done. Town Hall in Leamington, not here. And please hand your passes back for this building on your way out. There's a box here, demonstrated on the right. So thank you very much. Good night.